Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
I will arise and go now, and go to it is free, and a cabin I will build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Innisfree, and this is an a cappella performance of words originally written in the poem The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats, and performed here by Beth Gadbaw for her solo release, The Green Fields and the Mountains High, which you can purchase by going to her website, BethGadbaw.com. She'll be performing in a duo very soon, but more information on that later in the podcast.
For always night and day I hear lake water lapping in low sounds by the shore, when standing by the roadside or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome to this week's Music of the Mountains, Where to Be and What to See, brought to you by the Mountaineer Podcast. We hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and that you celebrated with family, friends, and or loved ones. Sorry this episode is coming out on Saturday instead of on Friday. It's been a chaotic couple of days, as I'm sure it has been for everybody. But that means that we are coming to you on the final day of November 2024. To cap off November 2024, our final episode of this month will focus on 2 guests who are performing together very soon in 3 separate interviews, and I'll get a little more into why that is later. Right now, though, I want to play a quick message brought to you by the Mountaineer before we jump right into our first interview.
Are you interested in advertising? The Mountaineer has advertising in print, on our website, through our social media. We have 3 guides each year, coupon insertions, and more. Want more information? Email marketing@themountaineer.com or give Bethany a call at 720-960-2900.
All right, let's get started. Our first guest, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
Sure. My name's Beth Gadbaw, and I'm a singer and percussionist, and I'm going to be playing a concert with Margot Krimmel, who is an amazing Celtic harpist.
And you will be performing with duo partner Margot Krimmel very soon.
We're going to have a concert. It's going to be at Busey Brews on December 7th. It's a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4, kind of an après-ski, relaxing vibe, peaceful winter afternoon up in Ned.
Just as a quick clarification, that Sunday performance from 2 to 4 p.m. is actually on the 8th, not the 7th. But I want to get some background on that upcoming performance. So Beth, I'm curious, what inspired you to become a musician in the first place? When did you get started playing music? How long have you been playing music? All that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a great question. And yeah, I was really inspired to become a musician when I was a child, about 7 years old. My mom grew up in New York, and her family is a New York Irish family, and I was really inspired by that. My family, I grew up in a few different states, but we were living in Utah at the time, and I was just so inspired by being around her family. And once I found out that Irish music existed, I just couldn't resist singing it. And as a child was really into singing, what we'd now think of as old-fashioned parlor Irish songs, and writing limericks and learning what now I know of as pub songs. There's a whole pub song tradition in the Irish song tradition. So that's what I kind of grew up doing. Some songs that sort of fall in that tradition would be songs like Danny Boy and The Leaving of Liverpool, and lots of songs that you might hear sung by the Clancy Brothers. And I really just instantly became passionate about it, and I started singing and just never stopped.
So it sounds like Irish music really has been what you focused on over the course of your career.
That's what I've really focused on, and I do a lot of different things musically, but most of what I write and most of what I perform has its roots somewhere in there. That's still really my passion. We have some great Irish traditions here in Colorado, and perhaps becoming stronger and more visible. And the way that I came to Irish music really was through my family and going to Ireland and learning and going to pub song circles and going to folk clubs in England. So I live in Lyons, big bluegrass town. And as an Irish singer, I see that as such a big part of our Colorado heritage. So, of course, I'm influenced by that and other great musicians in this area. And especially since COVID, got into writing a lot more of my own stuff. But that's where my heart started, was with Irish music.
I wanted to add some additional context that Beth first went to Ireland herself in 1996, where she attended the Joe Mooney and Willie Clancy summer schools. She then spent subsequent summers in Milltown Mall Bay, where she would camp on the beach, jump into the Atlantic early in the morning, and then head to her singing classes and sessions around that time. She later received a Fulbright scholarship to head to Devon, England, and spent time there where she fell in love with English folk song for the first time. And of course, you've written a lot in the style of Irish music too.
Yes. Yeah, a few years back, for example, Margot, that is the harpist in this duo, who's an incredibly creative musician. We set to music some poetry by the Welsh poet laureate and made our own spin on her words and wrote our own melodies to it. And, a lot of the things I've written lately are just a new song I've written called We Are Her Clan that is about people of the Irish diaspora and how inspired we are as Americans by our heritage. And I play with so many different musicians that it's exciting to discover how we're all inspired by different passions, whether it's our own music heritage or our own ancestry or just the different folk music from around the world. It's very inspiring.
Now, for some reason, what I didn't think about checking before is whether or not they actually called it the Poet Laureate in Wales. And no, that is not what they call the position. The person that Beth and Margot wrote music for around her poems, Gwyneth Lewis, was the inaugural National Poet of Wales. She assumed the office from 2005 to 2006. One of the poems that the two composed music for was Birder. It was commissioned by a choir. Beth will talk a little bit more about that choir later. So you perform originals and covers quite frequently. Do you have a preference in which one you perform?
Oh, I love doing both. I love the creative process, which I often engage in just by myself. Words and music will just kind of come to me. When I write my own self, it sort of happens organically that suddenly I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just have a song in my head that I've made up. But I also have a great love for the Irish song tradition, and there's such a wonderful wealth of songs that, especially for this show, we'll probably do a mix of both. For this show in particular, we'll be doing some songs and we'll be getting ready for the Christmas season. Margot and I recorded a Christmas CD a few years back called Icy December, where we played a lot of traditional carols and some new carols that we had written and rewritten some old carols. So we're going to be doing that again and playing probably a lot of new stuff, a lot of new rewritten carols, taking old lyrics and adding new melodies and playing some instrumental stuff as well. Margot is a really strongly creative and skilled and artistic harpist, and the way she and I started playing together actually was I was a teacher of singing and I taught her daughter singing lessons at a young age, and Margot became my harp teacher. So I still play a little bit. So for this show, it's going to be a perfect opportunity for us to do a little bit of double harp music and some music that Margot has arranged and some music that I've arranged. changed and written. So it'll be a fun show. It'll be fun for us. Busey Bruce has a nice vibe and energy, and people just seem happy up there. So we're very much looking forward to it.
And just as a clarification, how long have you been seriously performing all of these Irish songs and writing them yourself and making these performances a full-on career?
Well, I mean, I am 53, and Margot and I have been playing together since I was, I think, 26. So off and on, and we both still play with so many different musicians. We're not just focused on one thing. And Margot does a lot of solo harp stuff, and I do a lot of stuff with another trio that I work with and have worked with a couple larger bands. But yeah, this music has just been my passion for pretty much my adult life, and same for her. So.
And what do you love the most about the writing process? Is there something that keeps you coming back?
Well, one thing about writing is it's obviously a creative outlet. It's a way to connect with other musicians that I play with, just coming up with new ideas. Working with somebody musically is a certain level of intimacy, and art brings that out in people. There's just a level of intimacy that only happens when you're really engaged in the creative process with somebody. So I love that. I love singing my songs that I've written and sharing them with audiences and having people just say, oh, that feeling really resonated with me. And it's happened on several different occasions, just where I've written songs about ancestors that I've had, that I've found letters and taken those letters and made them into songs. And people really resonate with that. And I think there is something as well with Celtic music, but also with folk music in general, and even with covers. I mean, when I've done tribute shows to pop artists, and people just come up after the show, whether it's an old Irish song like Danny Boy or a pop tribute, like I did a Carole King tribute a while back, and people just come up and say, oh, I remember that song from my childhood, or I remember my parents playing that album, or that was my favorite song when I first moved into my old apartment. So both avenues have their own joy, and mostly it's just resonating with people. Music is such a powerful way to connect with the world.
As we've already talked about, you and Margot have been performing together for a long time. This is not a one-off performance, and you two will be performing under the duo name that you have adopted for decades, simply Gadbaw and Krimmel.
Yeah, I mean, the project that Margot and I have formed has been based out of our common love for performing and the camaraderie that comes out of performing, and of course then friendships are built. And so our project has been mostly woven in and out of the music that we've wanted to create. We spent a lot of our time as a duo writing choir music and got to travel around the United States playing with different choirs and arranging for different choirs. One of our projects that came out of that was some poems by William Butler Yeats that we arranged for four-part choir and harp, and that's been part of what we've done. More recently, Margot recorded a solo album, and she's been doing some concerts that are more related to just solo harp and instrumentals, and I'd been playing with a 5-piece band for a while, doing some other things, and so COVID seems like it sort of just happened. In other ways, it seems like it was long ago, but the exciting thing about it for me has been taking these projects, like I said, that I've done for a long time and sort of redefining them. So I think Margot and I are excited to just be, after having recorded this Christmas album, revisiting that part of the tradition for this show and a couple other shows we'll be doing in December, and rekindling those old projects.
But over the years, Beth, you have performed with plenty of other musicians and toured with plenty of other musicians. Beth didn't go into specifics about the groups that she has been involved with or the musicians that she has performed with over the years, but she had very interesting insights about her involvement in all of these groups over the years. Before I let her talk about that, though, I want to shout out the groups that she has been involved in and the musicians that she has also performed with. Along with playing in Gadbaw and Krimmel with Margot, she has also made guest appearances with the Chieftains, opened for the Battlefield Band, Lunasa, and the Seamus Egan Project, and she has toured with fiddler Sandra Wong and acclaimed bouzouki player Roger Lands. She is also a part of the high-energy traditional band Take Down the Door.
Yeah, and that's been fun too. I feel like there's a couple of different traditions, well, more than a couple in Irish music, but I feel grateful that I've had so many different opportunities to play with so many different wonderful musicians, and had a lot of opportunities to sing and do shows, and also a lot of opportunities to teach and to write, and that's sort of how my career has come around, with just a little bit of everything. I haven't been an artist that's really focused on one project and just stuck with it for a long time. And I have so many colleagues in the music world as singers and as teachers and as writers that I admire for the fortitude of sticking with one thing. And for me, it hasn't really been that way. And I feel it's worked out well. I mean, there's been a couple of times throughout my life where it's felt like musically the bottoms kind of dropped out a couple of times. And one of those times, of course, with COVID was it happened. Everything got shut down right before St. Patrick's Day. And I had, of course, quite a few concerts I was looking forward to doing with a project that sort of stopped playing together because of that. As a lot of people did, we'd examined our life and what we wanted. And I ended up doing some different kinds of art and getting into flower arranging and gardening and getting back into my harp playing again and doing some writing and slowing down. And so I'm excited now having a chance to play with Margot, just to take some of that creativity that's come out of all those different influences and bring it back together.
Now, what's interesting is I actually clocked Beth Gadbaw's name a while ago. A couple of weeks before we conducted this particular interview on September 17th, 2024, that's right, I've been waiting to release this interview for over 2 months now, I saw that she was performing at the Old Gallery in Allens Park with the Beth Gadbaw Trio. Is that a project that performs fairly frequently?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's another project that I play with frequently. Steve Mullins, who's based in Hygiene, is a wonderful guitar player, and Sandra Wong, a wonderful violinist from up near Jamestown. So, yeah, like I said, with all of my projects are like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's play when we can, where we can. And so, yeah, as I said, I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting old, and I don't spend a lot of time really promoting myself using the technology that we're using right now, which is working really well for us. But all of this music is happening, so I still keep in touch with a lot of my fans. I'm really grateful that so many fans that are also friends are willing to keep up with me with my slowpoke pace of email and word of mouth and my random Facebook posts and other things like that. But yeah, that project is one that I'm probably playing the most with right now is my trio. And we've got, a few things coming up over the next couple of months, and always getting busy around December when the Christmas time rolls around and when the St. Patrick's Day holiday rolls around.
And throughout your performing career, whether you're performing with Margot in Gadbaw and Krimmel, whether you're performing a solo show, whether you're performing with the Beth Gadbaw Trio, whether you're performing in the 5-piece Take Down the Door, through all of that performance history, do you have a favorite part about performing live in general, regardless of who you're performing with?
Well, I mean, there's just really nothing like being able to play music with people that you feel connected to and playing it for people that want to make a connection. I always sort of think of the bodhisattva analogy, where sometimes it feels like as performers we get to reach this enlightened phase of being able to have the unique experience of making music on stage, and the audience are really our bodhisattvas and allowing us to reach that level of enlightenment. I think mostly what I feel at this point in my life is just a sense of gratitude for the opportunity to get to do it, and gratitude for the audiences who are willing to seek out local music and keep supporting. You know, I think of myself in the grand scheme of things as a pretty small-time artist with a big love and passion for singing and for making music. And so I feel really grateful that I'm in the small world that I want to be part of, and that there's other people who want to be there in it with me in whatever form that takes, whether as a performer or as a teacher or as a writer or as a listener. So I guess gratitude is the biggest takeaway that I have right now for what I've been lucky enough to experience so far in my life.
And is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows when they come to see you perform?
Well, I hope that they'll take away a joy and gratefulness for having had the experience, and a willingness to keep in touch, because of course the other side of doing this is that it takes both of us. It takes all of us to make sure that it continues. It takes people that are willing to do things like sign up on mailing lists and look at Facebook pages and go for free downloads and buy recordings when they can. So I hope a willingness to understand that we're all part of the big circle of making sure that local music keeps happening. I mean, part of it is about our own enjoyment, and there's the other aspect of it that's our careers, but really it's just a wheel, and we're all part of that great spinning wheel that keeps it going. And that's what is so magical about music. I think as audiences that want to participate in intimate local shows, it's a different level of human connection than what we get from listening to mass-produced recordings, which I love too and certainly have their place. But I guess that's what I would like audiences to take away, is just realizing how special it is that we're all doing this to keep local music happening.
And yeah, I don't know, is there anything else you want to talk about before we move on to our next guest?
I don't think so. I mean, my website is there, my slowpoke old person 50-something website. It's BethGadbaw.com, and that's where I keep most of my shows that are upcoming. Margot Krimmel's website is BoulderHarp.com, and we're on Facebook too. So if people want to find out more of what's going on, there's always stuff going on, shows that I'm involved in, even if they're not my shows. I do some backup singing for people that might be coming through. And so if you're curious about what's going on in the singing world, in my world, go to the website, reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions about either my shows or about my songs or about my teaching or just being connected, because I love finding out what other musicians are doing too, and that's a good way to be in touch. So yeah, I appreciate your questions. You asked some really thoughtful questions that really made me dig deep and just reflect, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. I want to make sure I promote a whole ton of places that you can find her and a whole ton of things that she's done musically over the years. But I'm going to do that closer to the end of the episode and promote everything all at once. And the biggest reason for that is because you probably already know who our next guest is. But I'm still going to let her introduce herself anyway. Our next guest, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, my name's Margot Krimmel.
And of course, you and Beth Gadbaw, under the duo name Gadbaw and Krimmel, will be performing at Busey Brews very soon.
That's true. Busey Brews. Yeah, Beth and I are looking forward to playing at Busey Brews.
Well, we talked with Beth about the start of her musical career. But Margot, what was the start of yours? When did you first start getting into playing music?
Well, I like to say that I started my musical career at age 3, singing whatever came into my head. And that has pretty much been my way of doing music since. So I've just always loved music. I loved listening to it. My mom would put on classical records and I would dance around to them, and I loved singing in choir and all of that. And I got a guitar when I was 16. I loved singing and playing. I was in a country western band with a bunch of fantastically talented musicians in Steamboat Springs for a while, and all of that happened before I ever put my hands on a harp. So I've just been a musician forever.
I'm going to be completely honest. Because of what Beth talked about in regards to the music that she and Margot played together, I thought that Margot also focused primarily on Irish music throughout the course of her life. And unfortunately, that was not the case, and I didn't realize it until after I asked her about her focus in a particular style of music.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, because I like so many different kinds of music. But maybe what we should do is talk about what I do with Beth, which is Beth really introduced me to Irish music. She was doing her master's, I believe, at CU, and she was doing her final performance, and she wanted a harp player to come and play a song with her. So we got together and played 1 or 2 or maybe 3 songs with her. I don't remember. And she's just such a fantastic musician and loves the Irish tradition so much. So that's really how I got into playing Irish music. I had played harp before then, but as far as playing the Irish music in the style with Beth, it really came straight from her, from that time long, long ago when she was finishing up her degree at CU.
I wanted to make up for that misunderstanding by asking Margot what kinds of music she's listened to and performed over the years.
Well, you know, I have really enjoyed all kinds of folk music, all kinds of acoustic music. I played electric bass. bass in a band. I played stand-up bass in a swing band. I've played some jazz. I have not done anything in the rock and roll world, or electronic music has not really interested me. Yeah, on the harp, I play classical music and play pop music and all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so now I'm understanding that there really aren't any types of music that you particularly gravitate towards. You just love embracing what you can.
I do love embracing what I can. I will say the music I like to play the very most is the music that I've composed. So 2020, I had an opportunity to record, I think maybe 13 or 14 of my compositions, and on harp, solo harp, and that was a great, of all the projects I've done, every single project, that's the one that I feel is most representative of me, the person, me, the musician. That recording is not particularly commercial. I didn't make it to sell a bunch of records. I made it because these were things I wanted to express and things that I wanted to say. So I took compositions that I'd been working on for a few years and polished them up and went to a great recording studio, Cinder Sound in Longmont, and recorded those. I think it's about 13. Made a CD from it, sold out of the CD. That music still remains my very, very favorite music of anything that I've done. Well, of all of the things that I've done, all of the other things I've done informed that music. Does that make sense? So probably the reason that it's my favorite is it's because it's the latest really big artistic thing I've done. I love playing with Beth, and I love playing out, and I love playing pieces that are easy for fans to listen to. But if you just ask me what I want to play, well, it's going to be my own music, for sure.
There are, in fact, 13 tracks on that recent record. And I want to talk a little bit more about that recent record, which she will name a little bit later on. What kind of music is present on that particular record?
Right. Yeah, those pieces will be more contemplative, more reflective. If you think of just the most beautiful harp music you've ever heard, that's kind of what it is. They each have a story behind each one of them, emotional or cinematic stories, but hopefully my story doesn't get in the way of it being good music. So it's gotten some great reviews from some musicians that I really, really admire, and I would say because it's acoustic harp, it sounds like harp music. I don't know another better description, but it is contemplative, it is reflective, much of it is very peaceful and hopefully imaginative. Hopefully it's a kind of music you could listen to and just float away into your own imagination and create your own story from it. It was part of my idea, especially not in 2020 when we needed imaginations to solve our problems, but all the time. We always need those creative juices to flow, or the creativity that we all have to make itself present and solve some of these huge, big problems that we have right now in our lives. I think we can all look anywhere and see that things feel a little bit out of whack. So I think that that's really important, that people really nurture their creative side, nurture their imagination, and have space and time to do that. Now, I think sometimes the commercial music forces us into sort of a 4/4 rhythm where maybe we don't have quite as much space to have something new arise, to nurture something that just is kind of bubbling under the surface, when we are always having the same format, or as I think of it, the 4/4 kind of music. So, yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's probably a pretty good description.
So it sounds like you wrote that particular record to be free-flowing and reflective, and to not really conform to what I assume a lot of people presume is a quote-unquote standard of music.
Yeah, and of course, this is one thing you were just kind of getting to, Jamie, is that there really isn't a standard. So what is it if there isn't a standard? But I will say one thing, it's not standard harp music. I just said, it sounds like harp music, but I don't think of it as standard harp music. The music that I see other people write for the harp, either in the classical orchestral world or in the folk world, I don't see people moving into the places that I move into with my compositions, and I just think that's because what I've been informed with over the years is just so broad. And of course, it's only me. Only I would have that particular set of influences. We all have our own sets of influences. And, I've been playing music for a long time, so I've got a lot of different things that have influenced me, for sure.
And of course, I assume that recent record is instrumental.
Right. That particular CD, it's called Ever the New Time Comes. You can take a listen to it. It's on my website if you feel like you want to hear what I'm talking about. But yeah, Ever the New Time Comes, it's all instrumental. And I did that on purpose. I just thought, we're just going to do an instrumental set. There's other things that I write, but this particular set of music is just the instrumental music. So solo harp. There's no fancy little, I don't know, cymbals or something coming in, a little flute line or something. It's very, very stripped down in that way. I think it's very harmonically rich, and I think the sound that my engineer got on the harp is just to die for, but it is very pure in its form.
So I guess I'm also curious, since you've delved into so many different styles of music, is there a particular thread that has been consistent in the writing or composition process, or a reason that has kept you coming back to it?
Yeah, I think just trying to get as close to the truth as possible with the writing. What is the note that I really hear? What is the emotion that I'm really feeling? How much space does it really need? And trying to strip away the things that are superficial and just trying to get the best truth, the kernel of truth, trying to say it in the least amount of words, so to speak, as any, this would be like any art form. And this is all great. This is not what we're going to do at UC's. Hopefully we have a whole different thing happening there, which is we want to have some fun and of course we want to play some beautiful music. But Beth and I love playing together and we love playing for people, and the Irish music has great dance tempos, and the folk music, to me, it's very relatable too, and so that's a whole different thing. And I love that too. I would not want a steady diet of just me and my compositions because I love this other stuff too, so.
And over the years, what have you loved most about performing in general, in whatever capacity you're performing in?
Well, this is just going to sound so standard, but it's the fans. Oh my gosh, it's seeing people that come and listen to us, some of them for 20, I might even say 30 years. Some of our fans are getting rather aged by now, but there is just something wonderful about seeing that we like to say there is nothing like seeing your friends play, seeing and hearing your friends play. There is nothing like playing for your friends. And that's how the fans feel. And I know that there's so many musicians that feel that way. And there's a reason for it. We just get the energy going and there's nothing like it.
And is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows whenever they come to see you?
You know what I'd really like to say is I hope they play music their own selves. I mean, when I go and listen to music, and I'm assuming it's reasonably good music, maybe even if it's bad music, but I'm inspired. I want to go home and play some music. I want to go home and make something, create something, not sit around and, I don't know, I guess people don't watch TV anymore, but not sit around and watch YouTube. I want to have something that's real. So I hope that if I inspired one person to go home and play their guitar more, that would be just awesome.
So can you talk a little bit about other releases that you've been involved in? Are there any future plans for other releases? For context, since Margot is going to mention a very time-specific moment, this interview was recorded on September 27th, 2024.
That's great. Yeah, so Ever the New Time Comes is my latest solo CD. As far as plans for anything else, I don't have anything, not in the studio right now, so I don't know about that. Yeah, and Beth probably maybe talked to you about our CDs. I don't know if she talked about CDs that we've done together. So I think both Beth and I, Beth has a solo CD, I have a solo CD, and then we have, I think, 3 full-length CDs that we've done together. Yeah, Beth and I are delighted to be at UC's, and we're also doing a few other concerts in the holiday season. And so we have some new material, and I have to say that Beth and I, we talked about it over the phone, and then we got together last week, a couple times actually, and we write together really well. Beth has a great sense of, a lot of times what she'll do is she'll find words that she's attracted to, maybe a poem or maybe even words from a song with a melody, and then she might rewrite that melody or write a new melody to some poem that she's found, and then she'll give that melody to me, and then I will write the harp music for it. And I think there's just something very magical about the way that we work together. She really inspires me. She totally trusts me. She'll say something like, "Oh, Margot, I don't know what to do with this, but you will." So we really have a complementary style that we write things together, and Beth writes beautiful things by herself as well too. But I think there's something special that happens when she comes up with these melodies, and I come up with a harp accompaniment to support and enhance those melodies. And of everything, I'm looking forward to this very, very much.
So has Beth been your primary musical partner in general or in recent years?
Oh, gosh, no, I would say she's certainly one of them. So right now I'm working with a Japanese musician, Miki Sato, and Miki plays the Japanese bamboo flute, not the shakuhachi, which is the one that goes down, but this is the horizontal flute that goes across, and it has a brighter sound than the shakuhachi. For me, the shakuhachi bamboo flute sounds too contemplative, too mellow all the time. So this flute is called a shino bue. The shino bue is played horizontally, and Miki is an amazing musician. She's originally from Japan. She's been here in the U.S. for, decades. So she's really easy for me to work with, but I'm pretty darn excited about working with her. And I've also worked with another musician who plays the Norwegian hardanger, and I've really enjoyed that. And then, of course, my country western band, I think fondly about those guys all the time.
I do want to talk about another collaborator of yours, Margot, because honestly, seeing you perform with him is one of the reasons these interviews with you and Beth ended up happening. Like I mentioned earlier, I first saw Beth's name when she performed in the Beth Gadbaw Trio at the Old Gallery in Allens Park. I first saw Margot Krimmel's name popped up when she performed at the Netherland Farmers Market. She ended up performing with Ben Allen on pipes right before another act that I promoted for the same Netherland Farmers Market, Kutan Dara.
Oh, it's because it's Ben. Right. In fact, we can say that. I recently performed with Ben Allen on pipes at the Netherland Farmers Market. But actually, we're performing on Sunday, so I hope you can come hear us. Yeah, so there's another, oh my gosh, playing with Ben. How much fun is that? I will say my favorite thing to do, it's fun to play with a band, but I really, really enjoy a duo because I feel like I can really then tune in and commune with my one fellow musician and that a lot of magic can happen. And there's just the two of us and the music is going back and forth between the two of us, whoever the two of us is. That's a good observation I hadn't really thought about, that I often find myself in a duet.
I did promote that Netherland Farmers Market and mentioned that Margot and Ben were performing there, but I primarily featured Kutan Dara in my promotion of that Netherland Farmers Market, and you can read my column on Kutan Dara in the September 19th, 2024 edition of The Mountain Ear. I actually encourage you to subscribe to The Mountain Ear right now. A big reason for that is because during our transition to our brand new website, it looks like the Kutan Dara article, the digital version that is, got lost in the shuffle. But our archive is available to browse through. So with a Mountain Ear subscription, you can head to the September 19th, 2024 edition of The Mountain Ear and read my full column on Kutan Dara. And of course, I featured them in the Music of the Mountains podcast for that particular week, so be sure to head back to that episode to learn more. Anyway, we're not focusing on Kutan Dara this episode, we're focusing on you, Margot, and it sounds like performing in a duo, and particularly performing in a duo with Beth, has been really great for you over the years.
Yeah. Definitely. It's definitely my favorite. We're all good at certain things, but that particular duet is good for me.
And I have to say, we've covered a lot of ground, and I think it's about time to wrap things up. I wanted to ask Margot if she had anything else to add, or if I had made any misstatements along the way, and I was very relieved when Margot ended up wrapping up her interview with this statement.
Jamie, I think you've asked me some really good questions. I really appreciate talking to you, and I'm sure I'll think of something the minute we hang up, but I don't think I can think of anything right now.
Thank you so much, Margot, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. It was an honor having you on board. I am relieved that the interview went way better than I thought it did in the moment, and I really appreciate you coming on board. But I mentioned there were 3 interviews in this particular podcast episode, but there are only 2 guests. I ended up reaching out to Beth again to conduct a follow-up interview for a podcast-exclusive story that you are not gonna want to miss. But before we do that, here's a special message on behalf of the Mountain Ear, brought to you by myself. Mountain Ear subscribers, you've all sent in your beautiful, amazing, incredible pets. And now it's time for the community at large to decide who will win the honor of being the 2024 Mountain Ear Pet of the Year. Be sure to head to the mtnear.com and click on the first thing that pops up to vote now. Voting closes on Sunday, December 15th, so get your vote in while you can. The song that you are currently listening to is called In the Valley of the Golden Gate. It's an original composition for lever harp by Margot Krimmel. She submitted this particular performance for the Tiny Desk Contest 2019, and you can listen to the full performance by going to her YouTube channel, Margot Krimmel, at Boulder Harp 440, or by going to her website at boulderharp.com, where you can also purchase music that she has released both on her own and as part of the duo Gadbaw and Krimmel. Welcome back. And now let's get into a follow-up interview with Beth Gadbaw of Gadbaw and Krimmel. Now, of course, since we just talked with you earlier, I'm not going to have you reintroduce yourself. We're just going to jump straight into what I wanted to talk about, which is more background that I ended up finding when I wanted to cross-check information about you and Margot's beginnings. First, I wanted to hear it from you. When did you and Margot first start performing?
Oh, good question. I don't know, probably early 2000s, maybe? Maybe right around 2000.
She was not far off. According to an article in the Celtic Connection, Warmth for an Icy December, new Margot Krimmel and Beth Leachman Gadbaw CD, delivers delightful sounds for the season. Margot and Beth actually met in 1998. Beth had just returned from living in Ireland, and when she returned to Colorado, she realized that she missed the sound of her roommate there performing Celtic harp. So she decided to take up the harp herself. Beth talked to Dave Kolacny, who inherited a music shop founded by his grandfather in the Kolacny name, Kolacny Music, which Beth will talk about a little bit more in a second. Dave recommended Margot, and the rest is history. But I am curious, Beth, do you remember some of your first performances together?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, one of the ones I can remember vividly was we did a little tour in California and played at the Sylvia Woods Harp Center. Sylvia Woods was an All-Ireland harp champion back in the 80s, and so she, for decades, had a harp center in LA, the LA area, and so Margot and I went and did a concert out there and did some workshops. There was a harp center in Denver called Kolacny Music that just closed its South Denver location about 2 years ago, and they hosted a concert for us in Denver, and we did quite a few choral music concerts. We did a lot of work with the Cherry Creek Chorale in Denver, and they commissioned us to arrange some music written by the Welsh Poet Laureate, and so did some shows down there. And yeah, later on we did some choir music shows up in Seattle, and also just made the local circuit. We played at coffee shops, we played at the Broadmoor, we played at the Denver Irish Festival and the Elizabeth Celtic Festival. So yeah, we just loved to play together, so we just played wherever we could.
And of course, not only have you two been performing music together for almost 30 years now, but you've developed a friendship outside of that. Margot mentioned how she really likes performing in a duo in general, and that this duo in particular is a really great combination of two people. What are your thoughts on performing in a duo, particularly with Margot?
Well, being in a duo, there's kind of an intimacy there that is different from what you might get with a trio. I mean, just the sound that is produced itself is just a lot more delicate and transparent, especially in a duo and especially in a harp duo, because there's such a clarity of sound and such a transparency of the sound. And so with our unique instrumentation with her Celtic harp and my Celtic drum is kind of an unusual sound. So we often are thinking about how does particularly my vocals resonate with what she's playing on her harp. And so we spend a lot of time just noticing that and just sharing ideas back and forth about, a rehearsal might look like singing things and then recording them and seeing if we like how they sound, and then her her playing something for me and then me playing something for her and her playing it back to me in her way until we get it exactly right. So there's a lot of delicacy and a lot of thought that goes into it and a lot of laughter and sometimes some tears. And it's a really unique experience. I think that's different from playing with a band. The band energy is a little bit different just in the way that there's a lot more ideas popping around and there's a lot more sound, I guess. So when you're working with just two people, you have to really think how you're bringing out one another's sound and making the sound as big as possible with just two people, but also being able to play the strengths of having a smaller sound.
But now, for the real reason I'm reaching out to talk to Beth. I recorded this interview on November 22nd, 2024. So this was 2 months after I initially talked to both her and Margot. The only other time I've actually done a follow-up interview like this for a musician was with Harry Tuft. But I just had to follow up with Beth to get her perspective on a very particular story. I wanted to cross-check when Beth and Margot met and how they met to make sure I got that information right in the final Music of the Mountains column that is in the physical and digital editions of The Mountain Ear. When I initially searched for their first meeting, that's not what came up as the first result. As I just hinted at a second ago, Beth's maiden name is Leachman, and she took the name Gadbaw after she married Josh Gadbaw. And this hit was a column about her marriage to Josh. I built up the suspense as to what this column was to see if she knew what I was talking about before I said it. She knew instantly which article I was talking about.
Oh, yes, the New York Times article. That's the best press I've ever gotten.
Yes, you heard that right. On January 16th, 2009, a full column for the vows section of the New York Times was written specifically for the union of Beth Leachman and Josh Gadbaw. There was no way I wasn't going to hear Beth's perspective on this. I had to call her back. First, I wanted to build some background on the article itself. Had you been connected with the writer Lois Smith Brady before?
No, my husband and I had planned to do our rehearsal dinner, part of our wedding at the Kitchen, a restaurant in Boulder on Pearl Street. And the New York Times called the restaurant and asked if they had any Boulder weddings coming up in December, and ours was the one that they had. So that's how we got connected. And I came home. My husband and I were living in Boulder at the time, and I had gone to get my hair cut and getting all excited for the wedding. And he said, "Your hair looks great." And I said, "Thank you." And he said, "It looks perfect to be featured in the New York Times." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And he said, "I'm serious." And I said, "What?" And then he told me that our wedding was going to be featured in the vows column of the New York Times. And so she called and interviewed us. And yeah, we're featured on the front page of the vows column, which Josh and I had read the New York Times religiously every week. And we thought that was the column that always ended up on the floor in the coffee shop. But we got so many sweet letters from people all over the country, most of whom we didn't even know, just saying how inspired they were by reading about our love story and asking us questions and talking about their marriages. And so it was a really special opportunity that we've always been grateful for. It made our wedding even more fun. So I'm glad to talk about it. Thank you for asking.
I just think the whole story is so incredible. You had an entire column written about your wedding, and you got the surprise directly from Josh when he heard that the wedding had been randomly picked. I love it.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we had a New York Times reporter at our wedding. We had our wedding at the Chautauqua Community House, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, that's a really cool theme to have like a reporter asking questions about you." And I was like, "She's a real reporter." She's from the New York Times. And so it was a pretty, oh gosh, I mean, just talk about a once in a lifetime experience when you're getting married and you're so in love, and that just took it to a whole new level. Yeah, and you can't ask to get in that. I mean, they just randomly pick. It was just a random chance that it happened, and so Josh and I were really lucky. And like I said, of all the press I've ever gotten as a musician, that was my best and most favorite press.
Now, I really want to guide you guys to the original article because it is amazing. This story is just so incredible. But I do want to hear from Beth directly. If you don't mind talking about it, do you want to tell us about how you and Josh met?
Oh, sure. I love talking about that. Yeah, Josh and I met. I had done a Fulbright over in England for a year, and when I came back, I was teaching music at a school, and Josh was teaching there, and we met at the school, and we just instantly enjoyed being together. I mean, I think it was sort of one of those things where we both were at a phase in our life where we were just happy with who we were, and we had done things that we wanted to do. I had gotten to go overseas and live in England and do singing and do teaching, and I had done that in Ireland too, and Josh had taught English as a second language over in Italy, and we both kind of came to Boulder at the same time, and we met, we became instant friends, and then about 6 months after that, we were like, oh, I think there's more to this, and we started dating on January 2nd, and then we were basically planning our wedding 2 weeks later. And got married that same year, December 30th at Chautauqua. We wanted to do January 2nd, which would have been our 1-year anniversary, but Chautauqua was closed. So yeah, and Chautauqua was just a place that was special to us because we loved hearing music there. We loved hiking there in the summer and hearing music there in summer and all through the year. And so it was a perfect setting for us to get married. And it was just very romantic. It was everything that I would want a New York Times article to be about. And we're still that way. We're celebrating our 16th anniversary this year. And yeah, I feel like I could have a New York Times article about being married for 16 years because it's been one of my most fun journeys, and I'm very grateful. It's probably my favorite accomplishment of my life is being married to a person that I choose to love every day. So I'm grateful that the New York Times got to document it.
I find that amazing. Like I said, I have only done a follow-up request for an interview once before, and there was no way I could upload this podcast episode without getting your perspective of that story out there.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes, anybody listening that wants the movie rights. I'm always happy to talk about that aspect of my life. So yeah, thank you for asking. That's really special for me to be able to talk about it and fun. So thank you, Jamie.
Seriously, guys, read this column. This story is absolutely incredible. It recounts the time when both Josh and Beth were confused about who should make the first move. And it genuinely is movie worthy. Seriously, if none of our listeners want to pay for the movie rights, I will, and write and direct it myself. And I also must say that while January 2nd would have been a great date for the wedding to have been held, December 30th is a pretty awesome date for the wedding to have been held too. Funnily enough, that Celtic Connection article was published on December 30th, 2011, so 3 years after they got married. But I also love the date that they got married on for personal reasons. On December 30th, 2008, I turned 7. December 30th happens to be my birthday.
Oh, happy whatever birthday it is for you now. I'm not going to do the math right now. Oh, that's terrific.
I'll be turning 23 this December 30th, so I'll be celebrating my 23rd year of life as you two are celebrating your 16th year as a married couple. So congratulations to you and Josh as well. I did want to get Margot's perspective on this wedding as well, because funnily enough, she is mentioned in this column, but very briefly. The article talks about how both Josh and Beth lived alone in their own apartments at the time. The article says, and I quote, "Her roommate was a mutt. Boo. Ugliest dog you've ever seen," said Margot Krimmel, a friend. But she has Beth's bubbly, let's have fun, let's be together, let's live personality. So despite the fact that Beth and Margot had already been performing in a duo and had already released an album as a duo together at that point, that is the only mention of Margot that was made in that particular column. So I did want to try and follow up with Margot too, in order to get her perspective on it. I told Beth about this plan, and she told me a little bit more about Margot's involvement, and also reminded me of something else that I had heard.
Yeah, she was great. She played for our wedding. She marched me down the aisle. And she's actually in Japan right now. She won't be back until right before our Netherlands show. Her daughter is a horn player in the U.S. Army. I don't know if she told you that, but yeah, her daughter's a beautiful horn player. So she's over in Japan visiting with her daughter who's stationed in Japan.
Margot did mention to me in an email exchange that I had with her just a day or two before that she, in fact, was leaving the country, and the reason she ended up emailing me was because I personally bought a copy of her CD. In fact, now it's time to transition into the promotional aspect of Beth Gadbaw and Margot Krimmel's performance at Busey Brews very soon. I ended up purchasing every album that Beth and Margot are associated with because I wanted to support them as musicians, and frankly, I'm a music collector myself, and none of the albums are available on streaming services. I wanted to do my part, collect that music myself, and support these two awesome people because both of them were such a blast to talk to, incredibly lovely, and amazingly fun to interview. So thank you to both Beth and Margot for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. And you can check out all of their music by purchasing it for yourself. Of course, Beth mentioned her website earlier, which is bethgadbaw.com, and there you can purchase both of the albums that she has been involved in. Her 2016 solo release, The Green Fields and the Mountains High, and her album with Take Down the Door, Live in Lions. Meanwhile, you can check out Margot Krimmel's website at boulderharp.com, where you can check out both of her releases, Songlines, which is currently only available as a physical CD, and Ever the New Time Comes. You can also go to Margot's website, boulderharp.com, to purchase the 3 albums that Beth Leachman and Margot Krimmel have released together as Gadbaw and Krimmel. Their debut release, White Birds, their Christmas release, Icy December, and their most recent release, Live at the Black Rose Acoustic Society. Co-produced by Krimmel, I might add. I shouted out musicians that Beth has been involved with over the years, and press that Beth has gotten over the years, but I wanted to shout out the musicians that Margot has been involved with and the press that she's gotten too. According to the bio on her website, as a freelance recording artist, she's been featured on over 30 CDs. That includes projects from Janet Fetter, Jim Ratz and the Runaway Express, Robert Gass, and of course, the Cherry Creek Chorale. The reason why her website is boulderharp.com, by the way, is that in 1992, she founded her own harp studio, the Boulder Harp Studio, where she teaches youth Irish folk and pedal harp, as well as adults. Even though the New York Times article about Beth and Josh's marriage only briefly mentions Margot and doesn't mention her as a musician, she's gotten her chance to promote herself as a musician elsewhere. There are 2 short 4-minute interviews that you can listen to in 2 different places. One of those interviews is part of Colorado Public Radio's podcast series, Colorado Matters. Columnist Michael Hughes posted the episode under the headline, A Boulder Harpist Draws from the Brothers Grimm, and the episode focuses on the inspiration behind the title track of her latest record, Ever the New Time Comes. The second interview is part of a podcast series for Marketplace called My Analog Life. And it focuses on how Margot learned a frequently requested song to perform on the harp before YouTube allowed you to look at other people covering the song themselves or even teach you how to do it. Columnist Sophia Terenzio published the episode under the headline, How This Harpist Got Cats in the Bag, for a very particular reason. Be sure to check out both of those interviews online now. Beth and Margot both have their own individual presences on YouTube, with Beth Gadbaw's username being Beth Gadbaw 4072 and Margot Krimmel's username being BoulderHarp440, although both channels are in their respective names. There is also a YouTube channel for Gadbaw and Krimmel, which omits the "and" in the name. The username is GadbawKrimmel8421, and while the channel is currently inactive, there are a few performances that you can check out for yourself on there. Of course, though, to find their primary online presences, head to their websites, bethgadbaw.com and boulderharp.com, where you can purchase all of their music through Bandcamp. Beth and Margot as a duo also have their own website, whitebirdsmusic.wordpress.com. They have not updated this website in a while, but it's still really cool to check out if you want to learn more about them as a duo. And finally, an acknowledgement of both of these musicians' awards. As a solo performer, Margot has won awards including first place in jazz in the Pop and Jazz Fest in Tucson, Arizona, first place in traditional music at the Scottish Highland Festival in Estes Park, and third place in an original composition for Celtic harp in the Rencontres Harp Celtique in Dinan, France. Two of her compositions also placed in the International New Century Harp Music Competition in 2007. As a duo, Gadbaw and Krimmel were awarded a 2014 artistic residency at Caribou Ranch by Boulder County, and, along with writing pieces based on poetry commissioned by the Cherry Creek Chorale, they have also written original choral pieces commissioned by Cora Voce in Seattle. They're award-winning musicians. They performed at places including the Sonnenalp Resort in Vail, Swallow Hill Music Hall in Denver, the Radio Room in Grand Junction, and of course the Black Rose Acoustic Society in Colorado Springs, where their recent duo release was recorded live, and now they're coming to Busey Brews. So be sure to head over there on Sunday, December 8th, 2024 to see Margot Krimmel perform with Beth Gadbaw as Gadbaw and Krimmel, starting at 2 p.m. The brewery is located at 70 East 1st Street in Nederland. And now for this week's music mentions. A few of these are podcast exclusive because I didn't update the music listing in time for the next issue of the Mountaineer. But I'll make sure they're updated next time, I promise. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, December 8th, starting at 2 p.m. to see Beth Gadbaw and Margot Krimmel performing live. Head to the Coal Creek Canyon Improvement Association, the CCCIA, at 31528 Highway 72 in Coal Creek for an open mic very soon. I believe the listing currently says that it takes place on Wednesday, December 6th, starting at 7 p.m. That is incorrect because December 6th is not a Wednesday, it's a Friday. That is absolutely my mistake. I did not catch that in the editorial. It's Friday, December 6th, and you can head over to coalcreekcanyon.org to sign up for a slot now. There are a ton of performances coming up at Eldora Mountain Resort, located at 2861 Eldora Ski Road in Nederland. You can head over there on Wednesday, December 4th, starting at noon to see Andrew McConaughey performing a solo show in Timbers Tap House. He's primarily from Drunken Hearts, but he'll be performing on his own this time around. Also be sure to head there on Friday, December 6th, starting at 9 a.m. to see Warren G in the Boombox. On Friday, December 6th, starting at noon to see the artist-in-residence Derek Dame Zoll performing in the Timbers Tap House. On Saturday, December 7th at 9 a.m. to see Panda Bear in the Boombox. On Saturday, December 7th at noon to see John Ridnell in Timbers Tap House. On Sunday, December 8th at 9 a.m. to see Panda Bear in the Boombox again. And on Sunday, December 8th at noon to see Mark Towns of Kind-Hearted Strangers in Timbers Tap House. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, December 6th, starting at 8 p.m. to see Jamie Buffett, the Jimmy Buffett Tribute Show, performing live. Also be sure to head over there on Saturday, December 7th, starting at 7 p.m. to see Half Pelican performing live, and on Sunday, December 8th, starting at 6 p.m. to see Danny Schaefer performing live. Head to the Gold Hill General Store, located at 531 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, December 6th, starting at 7 p.m. to see Mickey Balder performing live. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown, on Wednesday, December 4th, starting at 5 p.m. for an open mic night. On Thursday, December 5th, starting at 7 p.m. to see Ryan Dart performing live. On Friday, December 6th, starting at 7 p.m. to see Eclectic Moonlight Experience performing live. And on Sunday, December 8th, starting at 10 a.m. to see John Shepard performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Nederland, for their regularly scheduled music events. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m., they host open mic nights. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m., they host DJ nights. Every second Friday at 7:30 p.m., they host reggae DJ nights. And every Sunday at 5 p.m., they host Jazz Sundays. Head to the Nederland Community Library, located at 200 North Highway 72 in Nederland, on Sunday, December 8th, starting at 11 a.m. for a special concert/meditation event featuring music from Anthony Salvo. Learn more about him and his performance in the previous episode of the podcast. Head to the Caribou Room, located at 55 Indian Peaks Drive in Nederland, on Saturday, December 7th, to see Hell's Bells, an AC/DC all-women tribute group, performing with the Blackouts. Doors open and dinner starts at 7 p.m., and the show starts at 8 p.m. And finally, pick your preference. If you want to head over to Gilpin County, then be sure to head to the Very Nice Brewing Company location at 180 Jankowski Drive in Blackhawk on Friday, December 6th, starting at 6 p.m. for an open mic night, and on Saturday, December 7th, starting at 5 p.m. to see Aaron Mitchell performing live. If you want to head over to Nederland, then be sure to head over to their location at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in the Caribou Village Shopping Center on Friday, December 6th, starting at 6 p.m. to see Mountain Reverb performing live, and on Saturday, December 7th, starting at 5 p.m. to see Windy Pines performing live. Did we miss you or your performance? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com or media@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to the final podcast episode of November 2024, this week's Music of the Mountains, brought to you by the Mountain Ear Podcast. Be sure to share this episode and others with whoever you see fit by heading to our primary website at the mtnear.com and scrolling all the way down to the bottom, or by heading to our podcast's primary hub at the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Speaking of our website, here's a quick message brought to you by the Mountain Ear.
At the Mountain Ear, we have been working hard on our new website. The new site is up, and through November it is completely free to check out. That's located at www.themountaineer.com.
And meanwhile, if you want to be involved in the podcast in any way, shape, or form, if you have something you want to promote in the Peak to Peak area, if you're a part of the Peak to Peak area, if you have a segment that you want to share with us, if you have advertising that you want us to put on the podcast, whatever it is, be sure to email me at media@themountaineer.com and we will get something sorted for you. I will see you guys hopefully more on time for our regular Monday edition of the Mountain Ear Podcast. Have a great rest of your day.
All through the night the donkey was tending to Mary and Joseph on a journey unending, and all through the night o'er the vast desert wild they searched for an inn where she could bear her child. Closed door to closed door.
With the end of November here and the start of December coming, it's time to usher in the holiday season. The song that you are currently listening to is called The Donkey and the Doves, and it is an original carol written by Beth Gadbaw and Margot Krimmel for their second album as a duo, Icy December. And this particular carol has been chosen by Colorado Public Radio listeners as one of their top 50 favorite holiday carols for at least 4 years. You can purchase 3 Gadbaw and Krimmel albums, 2 solo albums from Margot Krimmel, a solo album from Beth Gadbaw, and an album of Beth Gadbaw performing in the group Take Down the Door on Bandcamp now. And you can find all of this music by going to their respective websites, bethgadbaw.com and boulderharp.com. They will be performing as a duo at Busey Brews, located 70 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, December 8th, starting at 2 p.m.
With their guests, and all through the night they softly did sing lullabies they composed for the newborn king.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak-to-Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.